Thanksgiving dinners are supposed to be warm, filled with family gratitude and clinking glasses. But that year mine felt more like a staged ambush. My sister Lena had that rehearsed grin plastered on her face, the kind she wore when she had a particularly juicy piece of gossip or a carefully sharpened knife to plunge. She stood up, tapping her glass like we were at some formal gala instead of our parents' cramped dining room. "Before we carve the turkey," she said, her voice dripping with that sickly pageant-style sweetness, "I have an announcement." She paused, letting the room's still eyes flicking to me like a hawk that had finally cornered its prey. "We took a vote." She continued, her eyes gleaming, "and you're not family anymore." The words hung in the air, sharp and cold. For a second, the only sound was the tick of the old wall clock Mum refused to replace despite its crooked hands. Then, like a match to dry leaves, the room erupted. My cousin Claire clapped like she'd just watched a Broadway finale. My Uncle John lifted his beer in a mock toast, and even my own mother managed a tight, satisfied smile. It was surreal, like I'd stepped into an alternate reality where my own blood cheered for my exile. My father, the one person I thought might at least stay neutral, didn't even look at me. Just took a deep pull of his beer eyes, fixed on the football game flashing behind my head. I felt a slow, cold burn crawl up my spine. Years of sacrificed weekends, forgotten birthdays, emergency cash transfers, and quiet, unacknowledged support flashed through my mind. "Wow," I said, pushing back my chair slowly, the wooden legs scraping against the linoleum in a way that felt satisfyingly final. I met Lena's gaze, her smirk widening as if she'd just checkmated me. "You guys actually rehearsed this?" "You've been toxic for years," Lena shot back, her voice rising. "We're just finally saying it out loud." "You're a drain," my mother added, casually spooning cranberry sauce onto her plate, like she hadn't just driven a verbal knife between my ribs. "You don't contribute anything real to this family." It was unanimous. I scanned their faces. Not one person looked away. No one shifted uncomfortably. Not a single hand reached out to steady me. It was like they had collectively stripped me of any right to protest, to feel, to belong. The last thread of loyalty snapped. "Good," I said, quietly, my voice cutting through their laughter. I reached into my bag, the leather cool against my fingertips. I'd come prepared. I had known deep down that this would happen eventually. I pulled out a thick, neatly organized folder and set it on the center of the table with a heavy thud that silenced the room. Lena's smile faltered. "What's this?" she scoffed, reaching for it, the confidence in her eyes dimming as the edges of the truth began to creep in. "Why don't you find out?" I leaned back, folding my arms. I wasn't shaking, I wasn't flinching. I was calm, steady. I was done. She flipped open the cover eyes, darting over the first page. Her smirk melted into a slack-jawed stare. Her hand trembled slightly as she turned the next page, then the next. Her face turned a sickly shade of grey. The room had gone utterly silent, the clinking of cutlery and whispers of side conversations snuffed out like a candle in a storm. You kept all this?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Every text, every bank transfer, every late-night phone call, begging for rent money, every gaslight, every betrayal." I said, my voice flat, emotionless. I leaned in, letting the weight of my words sink into their shocked faces. "For years I kept bailing you out, paying for Dad's surgeries, covering Mum's credit card debt, keeping Claire out of collections, all without a single thank you. And when I finally said no, you all decided I was the problem." My mother's fork clattered against her plate, the sound unnaturally loud in the stunned quiet. Uncle John shifted uncomfortably, his beer suddenly less interesting. I could feel the panic spreading around the table, a ripple of collective guilt. "This is a violation," Lena stammered, shoving the folder back across the table as if it were toxic. You had no right. No right. I snapped my tone sharp enough to make her flinch. You just stood up in front of this whole family and declared me not family. You clapped for it, and now you're upset that I came prepared. I stood slowly, letting the chair scrape back once more, a deliberate spine-tingling sound that cut through their shock. I felt my pulse slow, my breathing steady, my senses sharpen. I had never felt more in control. You all had your little vote, I said, adjusting my coat, feeling the cool weight of my keys in my pocket. Now you get to live with it. With that, I turned and walked out my boots, thudding against the thin carpet as I passed through the narrow hallway, the faint, comforting smell of my mother's old lavender air freshener clinging to the walls. I reached the door, hesitating for just a second, my hand hovering over the handle. "Happy Thanksgiving," I muttered under my breath, not looking back as I stepped into the cold November night, the echo of my family's stunned silence trailing behind me. And just like that, I left them behind the door, clicking shut on years of being their emotional punching bag. The cold air hit my face sharp and freeing. I took a deep breath, my chest expanding with a relief I hadn't felt in years. This was just the beginning. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove to the small lake on the outskirts of town, the one Dad used to take me fishing at when I was a kid. I pulled into the gravel lot, cut the engine, and just sat there, staring at the still water, my mind racing. The cold air seeped in through the cracked window, biting at my skin, but I didn't roll it up. I needed to feel something real, something sharp after the numbing chaos of that dinner. Memories flooded my mind, each one tinged with a bitter edge now. Every time I had shown up for them, every bill paid, every emotional bandage I'd wrapped around their broken promises flashed in front of me. I had been their silent safety net for years, the reliable one, the good child who never asked for anything, never pushed back. I remembered the time Lena called me in a panic, her voice shaky over the line, "I'm short on rent this month. Can you help me out just this once?" Of course I said yes. Then there was the time my mother casually mentioned that her credit card had been maxed out. Her voice tinged with that familiar manipulative mix of shame and entitlement. I didn't even hesitate. I wired the money that afternoon. Then there were the bigger things. Dad's knee surgery, Claire's car repair, John's legal fees after that DUI he thought no one knew about. All of it came back to me in a cold, unrelenting wave. I had sacrificed so much for these people. My savings, my peace of mind, my sense of self-worth. And in the end, they had voted me out of my own family like I was a contestant on a cheap reality show. I leaned my head back against the cold leather of my seat, eyes closed, fists clenched. The truth was, I hadn't just lost them that night. I had freed myself. I pulled out my phone, the screen reflecting my exhausted face. I had the folder, the one I had slapped down on the dinner table, but there was more, much more. I had kept records for years, screenshots of texts, bank statements, emails, even social media posts where Lena and the others had openly mocked me. I had always been meticulous, a habit drilled into me from a young age. Always cover your bases, Dad used to say. Funny how that advice had come full circle. I scrolled through the files, my finger hovering over a particularly damning screenshot. It was a group chat Lena had accidentally included me in years ago. She had been complaining about me calling me a walking ATM and a pathetic doormat while joking with Claire about how easy it was to squeeze money out of me. I had never confronted her about it, choosing instead to quietly withdraw, to let my silence speak for me. But now that silence felt like a mistake. I hit share and sent the screenshot to a secure folder I had set up, one they would never find. It felt like loading the first bullet into a long empty chamber. I sat there for another hour, my breath fogging up the windows, the cold air finally starting to cut through the numbness. I had been their safety net for too long, but tonight that net had snapped. I started my car, the engine rumbling back to life, and drove home. As I pulled into my driveway, I felt the weight of something new settling in my bones. Resolve, determination, a cold, clear sense of purpose. I stepped inside the familiar creak of the old wooden floors, welcoming me back. I glanced around my small, cluttered living room, the stacks of paperwork and unpaid bills, a stark contrast to the lavish lifestyles my family enjoyed at my expense. I sat down at my desk, flipped open my laptop and started typing. Emails, statements, text logs, photos. It all went into a master file I named Final Chapter. I knew that if they ever came crawling back, if they ever tried to guilt me into one more loan, one more bailout, I would be ready. The clock ticked past midnight as I pieced it all together, a mosaic of betrayal, ingratitude, and blind entitlement. I felt a strange, dark satisfaction as the file grew each new piece, a nail in the coffin of the life I had once thought I needed. I leaned back, stretching my aching fingers, my eyes burning from the glow of the screen. I had no idea where this path would lead, but I knew one thing for certain: I would never ever be their safety net again. As I shut the laptop, the final click of the lid felt like the sound of a door slamming shut. This was the first step, the first small silent act of rebellion in a life that had been too quiet for too long. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the bare branches against my window. I took a deep breath, the cool night air filling my lungs, and allowed myself a small bitter smile. They thought they had cast me out, but the truth was, I had finally freed myself. The morning after the Thanksgiving ambush, my phone buzzed, aggressively rattling against my nightstand. I groaned, rolling over to grab it. The screen flashed with a dozen missed calls from Lena, 2 voicemails from my mother, and a string of texts from Claire, each more desperate than the last. I swiped them away, letting the phone clatter back onto the wood. They had gone quiet for years while I funded their messes, but the second I walked away, they panicked. Typical. I forced myself out of bed, my body sore from the tension of the night before, and stumbled into the kitchen. The sun was just breaking through the blinds, casting long, thin shadows across the counter. I flipped on the coffee maker and leaned against the sink, listening to the slow, rhythmic drip as my mind replayed every sharp word, every bitter laugh from the night before. I knew they wouldn't let this go. They never did. For them, my role was clear: the bank, the therapist, the fixer. I was the one who patched things up when their lives inevitably unravelled. And now that I had snapped the safety net, they were flailing. The phone buzzed again, a new voicemail popping up. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen, then hit play. "Hey, it's Mom!" Her voice crackled through the speaker, brittle and strained. "Look, we all said things in anger last night. You know how families are. Let's just move past it, okay? Give me a call when you can." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat, sharp and cold. Move past it. Like I hadn't just been publicly voted out of my own bloodline. Like they hadn't clapped and cheered as Lena declared me a stranger at my own dinner table. I let the message play out, her voice growing smaller, more desperate. "We're family after all," she said, her tone softening, almost pleading. "And families stick together." I deleted the message without a second thought. If I had learned anything over the years, it was that they only reached out when they needed something. I poured my coffee, the bitter, scalding heat grounding me, and sat down at my desk. The laptop still sat open, my hastily compiled file from the night before glaring back at me. I took a slow, deep breath, then started typing. The first email went to Lena. Subject: last night. "Lena, I meant every word. I'm done. I have no interest in being the family wallet, the emotional punching bag, or the silent doormat you all take for granted. You made it clear where I stand, and I'm finally choosing to accept that. Don't call, don't text, don't show up at my door. Consider this my final act of charity. S." I hit send, the little whoosh sound, oddly satisfying. It felt like the first real breath I'd taken in years. I followed it up with another email, this one to my mother. Subject moving forward. Mom, I appreciate your message, but I'm done pretending everything is fine. You've made it clear how you see me, and I won't ignore that anymore. I've supported this family for too long, and I'm tired of being the invisible backbone you lean on without a second thought. I won't be paying for Dad's meds anymore. I won't be covering Lena's rent. I won't be the emergency call you make when things fall apart. Take care. S. I leaned back, staring at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. It felt good. It felt powerful. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, the weight of 1,000 unspoken resentments lifting as the email disappeared into the digital void. I sat there for a moment, letting the silence settle around me, the only sound the soft hum of my laptop fan. I should have felt guilty, but I didn't. Not even a little. If anything, I felt free. Then, just as I was about to close my laptop, a new email pinged into my inbox. Subject seriously. It was from Lena. I clicked it open, my pulse quickening. You've got some nerve. After everything we've done for you, you're really going to cut us off like this. You think you're better than us now. Grow up. Family is family. I felt a slow, dangerous smile spread across my lips. She had no idea. None of them did. They still thought I was the same quiet, accommodating sibling, the one who would cave at the first sign of conflict. I cracked my knuckles, the sharp pops echoing in the quiet apartment, and started typing my response. Lena, if you really want to play this game, fine, but don't act surprised when you lose. S. I hit send my hand, steady my mind, clearer than it had been in years. I closed the laptop, the lid clicking shut, with a finality that felt right. I stood up, stretched, and took another long sip of my coffee, the bitter heat settling in my chest. They wanted a fight. I'd been training for this my whole life. The fallout hit faster than I expected. I woke up to another wave of frantic messages, this time from extended family members, their texts and voicemails dripping with concern and thinly veiled accusations. Word had spread quickly, and the family network had lit up like a Christmas tree, everyone scrambling to figure out what had happened. First came my Aunt Margaret, the self-appointed family peacekeeper. Hey, I heard about the situation. This isn't like you. Can we talk? Then my cousin Alex, whose only contact with me in the past 5 years had been to ask for my Netflix password. Dude, what's going on? Mom said you're acting crazy. Just chill, man. I deleted them without replying their casual dismissiveness, only fueling the cold fire in my chest. They had no idea what I had been through, no idea how many times I had picked up their pieces, patched their lives back together, and swallowed my own resentment. I got up, poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, and sat back down at my desk. My laptop chimed softly another incoming message. This one from Lena, the subject line flashing like a warning light. Subject, you're overreacting. I clicked it open, already bracing for the manipulative undertone I knew would be there. I don't know what's gotten into you, but this whole silent treatment thing is ridiculous. We're family. You don't just get to walk away. You're being dramatic as usual. Grow up and call me. Lena. I took a slow, steady breath, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to fire back, to lay out every hurt, every betrayal, every selfish demand they had ever made. But I stopped myself. I had already wasted enough words on them. Instead, I moved to the file I had started building, the one that had grown into a monster of receipts, screenshots, and cold, hard proof of every lie, every manipulation, every dollar I had sacrificed for their comfort. I opened the folder and started scrolling through it, letting the memories flood back. The unpaid loans, the emergency cash transfers that had turned into routine withdrawals, the whispered jabs at family gatherings about how I must be rolling in it if I could afford to help them so often. They had taken my kindness, twisted it, stretched it to its breaking point, and then acted surprised when it finally snapped. I found the screenshot of Lena's snide comments from a group chat she thought I had left. She had mocked me, openly calling me a pathetic ATM and a guilt-ridden doormat to her friends, laughing about how easy it was to squeeze money out of me. I dragged the file into a new folder, one I titled Final Cut. Next, I pulled up the bank transfers, each one a bitter reminder of how much I had sacrificed. There were thousands of dollars in there, rent payments, credit card bailouts, medical bills I had covered without a second thought. I sorted them by year, the totals growing more staggering with each passing folder. Then came the emails, the desperate pleas for help that always came with a thin layer of emotional manipulation. My mother's favourite tactic had always been the guilt trip. We're family. We stick together. You wouldn't want to see us struggle, would you? I pulled everything into the Final Cut folder, watching the file size grow until it was a digital boulder, a weight I had been quietly carrying for years without ever truly acknowledging it. I took a deep breath, my pulse steady, my mind clear. I had tried to walk away quietly, to let them move on without me, but they had pushed. They had poked the bear one too many times. I minimized the folder and opened my email, a new idea forming in my mind. I typed quickly, my fingers flying over the keys, the words flowing with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Subject, final statement. Lena, you clearly don't understand the gravity of the situation. This isn't me being dramatic. This is me finally drawing a line. You and the rest of this family have taken advantage of me for years, and I'm done. Attached, you'll find a record of every dollar I have ever given you, every debt I have covered, every emergency I have quietly resolved. I suggest you take a close look, because I won't be there the next time you find yourself in a bind. I'm done being your safety net. I'm done being your silent supporter. Consider this my final act of kindness. I attached the Final Cut folder, hesitated for only a second, then hit send. The email disappeared into the digital abyss, a quiet, satisfying click that felt like the final note in a long, drawn-out symphony of resentment. I closed my laptop, leaned back in my chair, and let out a long, slow breath. For the first time in years, I felt light, unburdened, free. I stood up, stretched, and walked over to my window, the morning sun breaking through the clouds, casting long, sharp shadows across my living room floor. I felt a small, bitter smile spread across my lips. They wanted to play games fine, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. It took less than 24 hours for the backlash to hit. My phone lit up with a barrage of texts, each one more frantic and unhinged than the last. First there was Lena. What the hell is this? Are you trying to ruin my life? Then my mother. How could you do this to your own family? I thought you were better than this. Even Claire, the one who had clapped the loudest during my public disowning, felt the need to chime in. You're overreacting. This is extreme even for you. I ignored them, the notifications, stacking up on my screen, like a tally of every boundary I had ever failed to enforce. I set my phone to silent and threw it onto the couch, letting it buzz away like a trapped wasp. I made breakfast, slowly taking my time for once. The kitchen felt quieter, more peaceful, without the constant barrage of demands and guilt trips. I sipped my coffee, savouring the bitter warmth as I watched the morning light creep across the kitchen tiles. But the peace was short-lived. The pounding on my front door shattered the calm, echoing through my small apartment like a judge's gavel. I froze my fork halfway to my mouth, a piece of toast hovering in the air like an unanswered question. I stood slowly, my bare feet whispering against the cold hardwood as I crossed the living room. I peeked through the peephole, my stomach tightening at the sight of Lena, her face twisted into an ugly mask of rage, her fists clenched at her sides. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the deadbolt. Every instinct in me screamed to ignore her, to let her rage burn itself out on the other side of the door, but I knew she wouldn't leave until I faced her. I opened the door a crack, the cold November air slipping through the gap and prickling my skin. "What do you want?" I said, my voice flat, emotionless. She shoved the door open, storming past me into the living room without waiting for an invitation. I clenched my jaw, following her as she spun around, her eyes wild, her breathing ragged. "What the hell is this?" she snapped, throwing her phone onto my coffee table, the screen still lit up with the email I had sent the night before. I crossed my arms, leaning back against the wall, my gaze steady. It's exactly what it looks like, I said, my tone calm, controlled. Years of unpaid debts, unacknowledged sacrifices, and blatant disrespect. All neatly organised for your convenience. She let out a harsh barking laugh, the sound echoing off the walls. You're insane, she spat, her eyes narrowing. You really think this is going to scare me? You think you can just cut us off and walk away? I felt a slow, dangerous smile spread across my lips, the kind that comes from years of bottled rage, finally finding an outlet. Yes, I said simply. Her face twisted, the colour draining from her cheeks as the full weight of my words sank in. She took a step back, her shoulders trembling, her fists clenching and unclenching at her sides. You're going to regret this, she hissed, her voice shaking. You think you can just walk away from this family, from me? You're nothing without us. I straightened, uncrossing my arms and taking a slow, deliberate step toward her. No, Lena, I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You're nothing without me. That's why you're here screaming in my living room instead of at home with your perfect little family. Because you know deep down that without me you're nothing but a parasite, a leech, a user. Her eyes widened, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air, the words dying in her throat as the truth crashed down around her. For a long, tense moment, neither of us moved, the air between us crackling with a decade's worth of unspoken resentments. Finally, she let out a strangled choking sound, her face crumpling as she spun on her heel and stormed out the door, slamming behind her with a bone-rattling crack. I stood there, my heart hammering in my chest, my pulse roaring in my ears, the silence that followed her exit, thick and heavy like the stillness after a lightning strike. I sank onto the couch, my legs suddenly weak, my hands trembling as the adrenaline burned its way through my veins. I closed my eyes, leaning my head back against the cushion, my mind replaying the confrontation in a loop, each word, each venomous glance seared into my memory. For the first time in years, I had faced her head-on, met her anger with my own, and walked away without a single regret. I took a deep, shuddering breath, the tightness in my chest slowly easing as the silence settled around me, wrapping me in a strange, cold comfort. I had cut the cord, I had finally let go. And despite the fear, despite the lingering echoes of her parting threats, I felt a small, fierce spark of freedom ignite in my chest. I wasn't the family bank anymore. I wasn't the silent, accommodating sibling. I was free. The days that followed felt surreal. My phone was eerily silent, the usual cascade of guilt-laden messages replaced by a profound, echoing quiet. I half expected Lena to storm back in her face, twisted with fresh outrage, but the door stayed closed, the hallway empty. I went back to work, throwing myself into projects I had neglected, my focus sharper, my energy renewed. I started running again, the cold morning air burning in my lungs as I pounded the cracked sidewalks of my neighbourhood, the sound of my footsteps like a steady heartbeat, grounding me. Then a week later, the first crack appeared. I came home to a thick envelope shoved halfway under my door, the paper crumpled where it had been forced through the tight gap. I frowned, picking it up, my name scrawled across the front in my mother's familiar looping script. I hesitated, my fingers tightening around the envelope, my pulse quickening. I knew what this was, an olive branch wrapped in barbed wire, an attempt at reconciliation laced with manipulation. I dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my shoes, and dropped onto the couch, the envelope heavy in my lap. I ripped it open, the paper crackling angrily, and pulled out a stack of handwritten pages, the ink smudged in places where her pen had lingered too long. Dear S, we never meant for things to go this far. You have to understand families fight. People say things in anger that they don't mean. We were hurt, we were scared, and we lashed out. But cutting us off completely, ignoring our calls, sending those emails, that's not you. It's not the S we know. Please, let's put this behind us. Come back for Christmas. We'll talk this out as a family. We miss you. I miss you. Love, Mum. I felt my jaw tighten, my teeth grinding together as I scanned the letter, my stomach twisting with a familiar sickening mixture of guilt and resentment. They always did this, pushed me to the breaking point, then tried to reel me back in with empty promises of change, of forgiveness, of the family bond they had spent years weaponizing against me. I flipped to the next page, my fingers trembling slightly. Your father isn't doing well. The stress has been getting to him. He won't say it, but he misses you. Lena is struggling too. She's been quiet lately, withdrawn. I know she said some harsh things, but you have to understand she's your sister. Family is family. We don't give up on each other. Please just come home for the holidays. I felt a cold, bitter laugh rise in my throat, my hands shaking as I crumpled the letter into a tight, angry ball. They still didn't get it. They still thought I was the same quiet, accommodating sibling, the one who would cave the second they dangled a scrap of emotional connection in front of me. I leaned back, my head thumping against the back of the couch, my mind racing. For years I had bent, I had broken, I had twisted myself into knots trying to be what they needed to hold this family together, to make up for their failures and shortcomings. But not anymore. I stood crossing the small living room in a few quick strides, yanking open the drawer of my desk and pulling out a fresh, crisp sheet of paper. I grabbed a pen, the metal cool and solid in my grip, and started writing my hand, steady, my mind clear. Mum, I understand that you're hurting. I understand that you miss me. But you need to understand that I have spent my entire life being the one who bends, who breaks, who sacrifices. I have given more to this family than any of you have ever deserved, and I have nothing left to give. I will not come home for Christmas. I will not sit at that table and pretend that the wounds you all carved into my back have magically healed. I am not your safety net. I am not your silent supporter. I am done. Please respect my decision and do not contact me again. I folded the letter, slipped it into a plain white envelope, and sealed it with a single sharp press of my thumb. I felt a strange, quiet calm settle over me as I scribbled my mother's address on the front, my handwriting firm, unshaken. I pulled on my shoes, grabbed my keys and stepped out into the cold, the air sharp and clean in my lungs as I made my way to the mailbox at the end of the street. I stood there for a moment, the envelope clutched tightly in my hand, the world around me silent still, the streetlights casting long, thin shadows across the pavement. Then, without another thought, I let the envelope slip through my fingers, the faint rustle of paper on metal echoing through the empty street as it disappeared into the darkness. I turned, my breath fogging in the cold night air, my steps light, my heart steady. I was free. Story 2, I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed. It was a group chat notification, my mom, my brother Kyle, his fiancée Emma and me, the baby shower group. I unlocked my phone and the message hit me like a slap. +1 not approved, just send gifts. Before I could even process that, another message popped up. You can't afford real family, so you buy us. Mom. My heart clenched. Not the usual hurt or shock, just a numb, static kind of emptiness. Like I was slowly tuning out their frequency. Over the past month, I'd sent $6,400 to help with the baby shower. Venue catering decorations, anything Kyle and Emma mentioned needing, I handled. I even covered the deposit for the event space because money was tight. Kyle's words, not mine. They didn't know how hard I worked. 60-hour weeks as a logistics manager, grueling but well paid. I'd been helping them for years, rent for Mum and Dad's condo, Kyle's car payments, Emma's student loans, all me. But this time this was different. That message wasn't just cruel, it was a revelation. I whispered, "Good point." A tiny bitter smile crept onto my face. If they wanted to accuse me of buying family, maybe it was time to stop. I set down the laundry and opened my laptop. Banking app, PayPal auto payments all cancelled. Mom's rent, Emma's loans, Kyle's Jeep, done. It felt like unplugging cords that had been draining me for years. I wasn't angry, just peaceful. I texted back, "Got it. I'll just send gifts." Silence. I went to bed early that night. For the first time in a while, I slept soundly. The next morning, my phone exploded, 22 missed calls, 11 unread messages. Chaos in the family group chat. "Your dad's landlord called rent, didn't go through. Kyle's car payment is overdue. Emma says her student loans are delinquent." I didn't bother replying. I poured myself a coffee, opened the window, and let the morning breeze hit my face. I knew they would show up. They always did. At 7:30, Dad's car pulled into my driveway. He didn't even knock, just pounded on the door like a heartbeat. I sipped my coffee and waited. When he finally left, I felt lighter. No more texts about bills, no guilt-laden calls, just quiet. But the silence didn't last. Memories filled the space. The first time I helped them out, I was 20, my first real job. Dad called desperate about Mum's medication. Without a second thought, I sent $500. Then came Kyle's car, down payment, Emma's tuition, their condo's mortgage after Dad's business failed. I was just starting my life, and I became their safety net. And they never thanked me, not once. Instead, I became the family accountant. A blur of payments and excuses. And the few times I needed support, I was met with dismissive comments. "You're too sensitive. You're always working." That baby shower message wasn't just about the party. It was the culmination of years of feeling used, and I was done. I went back to the group chat. More messages. Kyle accusing me of ruining his life. Mom playing the victim. Emma calling me selfish. I blocked them one by one. That evening I opened my laptop again. Years of financial records, rent loans, car payments. I gathered them all, saving each file meticulously. I wasn't just cutting them off. I was preparing for the inevitable blowback. Later, scrolling through social media, I saw Emma's post. "Some people forget who their real family is when they get money. It's sad." I almost replied. Almost. But I knew better. Instead, I took screenshots and saved them. They weren't the only ones who could make this public. And so I waited. 2 days of silence. It felt strange, like the calm before a storm. I filled my time with small victories, finally organised my closet, cooked a real breakfast, even took a walk around the park. Things I hadn't had the mental space for in years. Then right in the middle of a chest press at the gym, I heard them. My parents, Kyle and Emma voices, cutting through the clank of weights and hum of treadmills. I let the bar down slowly, trying to convince myself I was just hearing things. But then it hit me again. There he is. I turned. My mother, her eyes red and swollen, clutching her purse like it might save her. Dad, face red, fists clenched. Kyle stiff-jawed, and Emma, her mascara streaked like she hadn't slept. They all stood there just inside the entrance, looking like a family on the edge of collapse, which I guess they were. A few people stopped their workouts, earbuds slipping out as they realized something was about to go down. Emma's voice cut through the air, sharp and raw. "Are you happy now? We're struggling because of you." I almost laughed. Instead, I set the bar down and stood up slowly, wiping the sweat from my forehead. I locked eyes with her. "Struggling because of me? I'm not the one who lived off someone else's back for years." Dad stepped forward, his face twisted in a mix of rage and desperation. "We're your family. You don't just turn your back on family." I took a step closer, feeling my pulse slow, my breath steady. "I didn't turn my back, I just stopped letting you ride on mine." A whisper spread through the gym. Someone behind me muttered, "What the hell is this?" A guy on a treadmill paused his run phone out recording. Mom's voice broke a desperate wail. "All we ever did was love you." I shook my head, the bitterness rising like bile. Was it love when you guilt-tripped me into paying your rent? when you lied about Emma's tuition, when you threw family parties without me because I was just the wallet. Emma stepped forward, finger-pointed eyes wild. Stop pretending like you're the victim. You never cared about this family. I felt a cold calm settle over me, a strange detachment. No, Emma, I did care. That's why I paid for everything. But you only cared about my money. Dad, his face a shade of furious red, jabbed a finger into my chest. You've never respected us. Never. A trainer stepped in, arms out. So you need to leave. Dad ignored him, turning to the small crowd gathering around us. See this? See how he treats his own family? Thinks he's better than us just because he's got money? A woman near the squat rack shook her head. This is wild. Emma's voice broke her tone, shifting from rage to something close to desperation. You think cutting us off makes you powerful? You're just a lonely, miserable man. I pulled out my phone, swiped through the gallery, and hit play. I turned the screen to face them. The sound of Emma's voice filled the gym loud and clear. Don't worry, I'll get him to pay for it. He's naive, always has been. We'll just tell him it's for school. He never checks. Emma's face went pale. Mum's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's fists clenched tighter. I have all the proof I need. I said, my voice steady. Records, messages, bank transfers. If you want to keep pushing, we can take this further. Emma lunged, but Kyle grabbed her, holding her back. You liar, she screamed. I stepped back, my tone colder than I'd ever heard it. Liar, I was your bank, your private ATM. You didn't even care if I was there as long as I paid for everything. Dad's voice hit a new level of rage. I'll ruin you! I took another step back, feeling the weight of the years of manipulation lift from my shoulders. Go ahead, but I'm done. No more money, no more lies. I don't owe you a single thing. Mom collapsed onto a nearby bench, her sobs echoing off the gym walls. You're killing us, your own family. I leaned in close enough for them to hear me over her wails. No, Mom, I'm saving myself. I turned and walked toward the exit, the whispers and gasps following me. I didn't look back. I didn't have to. As I reached the door, my phone vibrated in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. That was insane. I got it all on video. Want me to send it to you? I smiled, felt a strange sense of freedom wash over me. Send it. 2 days later, the video from the gym hit social media. It started on a small local page, then jumped to Reddit, Twitter, and TikTok. It spread like wildfire, thousands of views, then tens of thousands comments stacking up faster than I could read. Family drama at the gym. Watch this guy cut his entire family off in real time. People dissected every second, analysing body language, picking apart my words, their reactions. It felt surreal, like watching a movie I had lived. For once, people were seeing my side without my family twisting the narrative. My phone lit up with texts and missed calls. Kyle, Mum. Even Emma, her messages jumping between desperate pleas and furious accusations. I didn't respond. Then the calls stopped. Silence. That eerie, weightless quiet that usually means a storm is building. I used it. I called my lawyer, a no-nonsense guy named Mr. Graham. We met at his office, the air sharp with the scent of coffee and fresh paper. He flipped through the stack of documents I brought, years of bank statements, PayPal transfers, text screenshots. After a long silence, he leaned back, folding his hands. I've seen scams, I've seen fraud, but this, he shook his head. This is a family treating you like a cash machine. I took a deep breath. I want it back, every dollar. He leaned forward, his eyes sharper now. Given the evidence we can file for unjust enrichment and fraudulent misrepresentation, they took your money under false pretenses. They manipulated you. That word manipulated hit different. It cut through years of denial. 2 days later, the first letter went out, a demand for repayment. Every dollar they had squeezed from me, calculated and itemized. $12,000 in rent payments from my parents. $16,500 in Emma's student loans never used for tuition. $8,000 for Kyle's Jeep, now covered in dents he never bothered to fix. $6,400 for the baby shower. Total $42,900. It wasn't just about the money. It was about reclaiming every piece of myself they had taken. The panic hit within 48 hours. Mum called first, her voice shaky, desperate. "Sweetheart, I just got this letter. What does it mean? Are you serious?" "You can't be serious." I kept my tone steady, calm. "You have 30 days to return everything you took from me. After that, we go to court." Her voice cracked, the desperation bleeding through. "Court, we're family." I clenched my jaw, held the phone tight. "I didn't do anything to you. I just stopped letting you do it to me." Next was Dad. No begging, just rage. "You ungrateful child, after everything we did for you." I couldn't help but laugh. "Name one thing you did for me that wasn't for yourselves." Silence, then a click as he hung up. Emma's texts were a mess of anger and hysteria. "How can you be so selfish? You're ruining my life. I'll tell everyone you're a monster." I sent her one message. "Do it. I have the receipts, literally." They tried to ignore the letter, hoping I would back down. But then the second letter arrived, a pre-litigation notice. The next step was a lawsuit. That's when they cracked. Mum called crying. "Please, honey, we can talk about this. It wasn't what it looked like." I cut her off. "It looked like you used me." She tried to interrupt, but I kept going. "You lied. You manipulated me. Now you pay it back." Her sobs turned sharp, her voice almost a hiss. "You want to destroy us over money. What kind of son does that—" I took a slow breath. "Not a son, a victim, but not anymore." Dad called next, trying a different approach. "Look, you're a businessman now, right? We can make a deal. You drop this and we'll apologize." I felt my jaw tighten. "I don't want apologies. I want my money." Panic set in. Kyle's Jeep hit Craigslist. Quick sale. No reasonable offer. Refused. Emma started working double shifts at a bar, the same one she used to mock me for working at in college. Dad tried to refinance their condo, but their credit was garbage without me. Finally, their lawyer reached out. A desperate plea for mediation. They wanted to settle. Not because they cared about losing money, but because they knew they would lose their reputation. I agreed, but on my terms. The mediation room felt like a battlefield. Mum sat with her hands trembling, her eyes red. Dad stared at the table, refusing to meet my gaze. Emma looked ready to scream, her makeup a mess. Kyle was missing, probably hiding from shame. Their lawyer spoke first. "My clients are willing to make a good faith offer of $10,000 to resolve this matter." I almost laughed. $10,000, you owe me 4 times that. Emma's fist hit the table, her voice sharp. "You're ruining our lives. You know that we're your family." I leaned forward, my voice calm, icy. "Family doesn't drain you dry. Family doesn't lie to you. Family doesn't laugh while they rob you." Dad finally looked up, his eyes hard. "You think you're better than us, don't you?" I met his gaze, felt the years of manipulation fall away. "Better lonely than bled dry by parasites." Their lawyer cleared his throat. "Let's stay professional." I didn't break eye contact with Dad. "Professional is what this is. They owe me $42,900. They will pay every cent." Silence. The room felt smaller, tighter. Their lawyer leaned in, whispered something to them. Mum's shoulders slumped. Emma glared at me, her eyes like daggers. Finally they signed. Full repayment monthly installments until every cent was returned. If they missed even one payment, I could seize their assets. As we left the room, Emma spat at me. "We can't believe you'd do this to your own family." I smiled. Finally. 2 weeks later, the first payment hit my account. $2,000, a small drop in the ocean, but it was a start. I changed my number, deleted them from social media, and watched their world collapse from a distance. Freedom wasn't just about getting my money back. It was about reclaiming my life, and with every payment I felt it. They sold me out for years. Now they were finally paying the price. Story 3. Turning 30 wasn't supposed to feel like this. I planned a small celebration, a cozy bar lounge, some drinks, and the familiar faces of my family. Nothing extravagant, just a way to mark a milestone with the people who mattered. I sent the invites, booked the place, and even bought a cake. That night I arrived early. The bartender greeted me with a nod as I set up a little table with balloons and the cake. 7 o'clock rolled around, then 8. My phone remained silent. At 9, it hit me nobody was coming. The bartender gave me a sympathetic smile, and slid a whiskey in front of me on the house. I managed a weak laugh and thanked him. I cut a small slice of the untouched cake, eating it alone while pretending not to notice the occasional pitying glance from other patrons. By 10, I packed up, left a tip, and walked home. I couldn't shake the thought, had I done something wrong, missed a hint? A week later, I was in the middle of a work call when my phone buzzed. It was a group text from my mum. "Hey family, your dad's 50th birthday is coming up. We're celebrating at Lakeside Resort. Cost is $1,800 per person. Please Venmo me by Friday. Love you all." I stared at the screen, half expecting a follow-up text, maybe a belated happy birthday, an apology for the party they all ignored. Nothing. Just a demand for money. My sister's reply came quickly, "Already sent, can't wait." Then my brother chimed in, "Same here, looking forward to it." That's when something in me snapped. They couldn't even text me a simple happy birthday, but they expected me to shell out nearly $2,000 for Dad's party. I didn't respond with anger. I didn't argue or plead. I just opened Venmo, sent $1 and wrote, "Congratulations." Then I did something I never thought I would. I changed the locks, blocked every number from the family group chat, and sat down feeling something I hadn't felt in years, relief. 2 days passed, and just as I started thinking they might have accepted my silence, I got an alert from my bank, an unauthorized attempt to access the joint account I shared with my sister. I couldn't help but laugh. Of course. I logged in, moved the remaining funds to a private account and closed the joint one. Minutes later, my sister tried calling from a different number. I didn't answer. Then on the third night, just as I was about to settle in with a movie, there was a loud, rapid knock at my door. Peering through the peephole, I saw 2 police officers. I opened the door, cautiously. One of them, tall, with a serious face, spoke first. "We received a report about a missing person." "Are you Tim Blake?" "Yes," I replied, confused, "but I'm not missing." The shorter officer glanced at his notes. "Your family reported you missing. They said they haven't heard from you in days and were worried." I almost laughed again. Did they mention I blocked them? The officers exchanged a look. "Mind telling us why?" I sighed. "They've been trying to access my accounts without permission. I blocked them to protect myself." The taller officer nodded slowly. "So you're okay? Just avoiding contact?" "Exactly," I replied firmly. "I'm not missing, I'm just done." The officers looked relieved. "Would you be willing to call them to clear things up? It would help avoid more visits like this." I considered it, then shook my head. "No. If they keep this up, I'll file a restraining order." The officers left without further questioning, but as they walked away, one of them turned back. "Just be prepared," he warned. "People can do desperate things when they feel cut off." I closed the door, feeling the weight of those words. Was this really just beginning? 2 days of silence, not a single text call or email from my family. At first I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd taken the hint and backed off. But then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring out. A minute later another call, this time my mother's number. Declined. Then my father's. Declined. Finally a text came through. "How could you do this to us? Your father is devastated." I tossed the phone aside, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe. It was the same old game, guilt manipulation, emotional blackmail. I wasn't falling for it this time. A loud, insistent knock at my door shattered the silence. I looked through the peephole. It was my mum, her face, tight lips pressed into a thin, angry line. I cracked the door open just enough to speak. "Go home." "Oh, now you're hiding." Her voice cut through the air, sharp and accusing. "Your father is beside himself. He thinks you've lost your mind." "I'm perfectly sane," I replied, my voice cold. "I just finally decided I'm done being your bank account." "Bank account, we're your family, Tim." She tried to push the door open, but I kept my grip firm. "You don't turn your back on family," she snapped. "I didn't turn my back, I just stopped paying for your lifestyle." Her eyes flashed, her face contorting with anger. "So this is about money to you, after everything we've done for you." I let out a bitter laugh. "Everything you've done." Like the guilt trips, the the constant demands. The fact that you couldn't even text me on my birthday, but had no problem asking me for nearly $2,000 for Dad's party, that was different. She snapped her tone, dripping with entitlement. Your father deserves a celebration. He's done so much for you. Done so much, I shot back. Like what? Ignored me when I needed support. Used me as a walking ATM for years. Or maybe you mean how you never had a problem spending my money, but couldn't even pretend to care. Watch your mouth, she hissed, her hand gripping the door. You are not too old for me to... To what I cut her off, my voice sharp. Guilt me, manipulate me. Those tricks don't work anymore. A car pulled up behind her. Dad. He stepped out, his face set in that familiar look of manufactured disappointment. Tim, he called, his voice low, trying to project authority. What are you doing? Why are you acting like this? I'm acting like someone who's tired of being used. You're making this all about money, he shouted, finally losing his calm facade. Family is about sacrifice, about support. No, I said, my voice steady. Family is about respect, and you never had any for me. Respect. Mom laughed, a bitter, sharp sound. We've done everything for you, and this is how you repay us. Everything for me? I shot back, my anger rising. You mean letting me pay for your house, your vacations, Sarah's wedding, Ethan's college, or how you didn't even bother showing up for my birthday? Your birthday, Dad scoffed. You're 30. Grow up. Yeah, grow up and keep paying your bills. Not anymore. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. We raised you, fed you, educated you. You owe us. I met his gaze, unflinching. I owe you nothing. Not a cent, not a minute, nothing. Mom's voice cracked, a rare flicker of genuine emotion breaking through. You're destroying this family. No, I replied, feeling a strange, calm resolve settling in my chest. I'm just not letting you destroy me. Suddenly another car pulled up. My sister Sarah stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Are you happy now? She shouted, marching up the steps. Mum's been crying all morning. Dad's blood pressure is through the roof. I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. Spare me the drama, Sarah. This is what you all do. You play the victim whenever I stop giving you what you want. You're so selfish, she spat. You always think you're better than us. No, I said, my voice steady. I just finally realized I deserve better than this. Fine, she screamed, turning back to our parents. Let's go, let him rot. But before they reached their cars, Mom turned back one last time, her face twisted with fury. You'll come to understand this one day, Tim. You're going to come crawling back, begging for forgiveness. I smiled, feeling a strange, liberating lightness in my chest. Don't hold your breath. They left tires screeching, and the silence that followed felt like a cold, clear sky after a storm. I leaned against the door, my pulse racing. Then my phone buzzed. Unauthorized login attempt on your bank account. My heart skipped a beat. They were trying to hack my account. Another notification followed. Password reset request received. They were desperate, but they didn't understand. The more they pushed, the harder I'd push back. I didn't wait. I opened my banking app and double-checked everything. Every account, every credit card locked two-factor authentication on everything. Then I went further. I called the bank. Yes, this is Tim Blake. I want to place a security hold on any joint accounts with my family's names. Mr. Blake, are you certain this will restrict their access entirely? I'm counting on it. The next call was to the mortgage company. My name was still on the house my parents lived in. I co-signed years ago, another favour they begged for. I wasn't even sure they were still paying it off. I need to temporarily freeze any changes to the mortgage account under Tim Blake's name, I instructed. Understood, sir, but this may prevent the account holder from making payments. Good. As I hung up, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it ring, but the messages followed. Tim, what are you doing? You're going to ruin everything. Mom, you have no idea what you're starting. I ignored them. They wanted chaos. I would give them chaos. 2 days of silence stretched into a week. My phone stopped buzzing. The knocks at my door ceased, and for the first time in years my apartment felt like a real sanctuary. I started getting back into my routine work gym, a few quiet nights with friends. I almost believed the storm had passed. But then another email from my lawyer, short and direct. Tim, your family has tried to refinance the house without your consent. They need your signature. I blocked the attempt, but they may try something else. I felt my jaw tighten. So this was their next move, try to take full ownership of the house I helped them keep behind my back. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer. John, I want to sell my share of the house. That will force them to either buy you out or sell the house entirely, he said, sounding impressed. Are you sure you want to go this route? Absolutely. I'm done being their safety net. Within an hour, the paperwork was in my inbox. I signed and sent it back without a second thought. It was time they learned the cost of taking me for granted. Later that evening, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I ignored it, but the messages kept coming. Tim, this is your sister. What are you doing? You're going to destroy everything. Mom's been crying all day. Dad's not sleeping. He's barely eating. Are you proud of yourself? I let out a long, slow breath, then responded, I'm not destroying anything. I'm just taking back what's mine. Silence for an hour, then another text. Fine. You want a war? You got it. I almost laughed. They still didn't get it. They thought they could break me with their guilt trips and emotional blackmail. They had no idea I had more ammunition. I logged into my email, started a new draft. Subject financial audit, family expenses. Body, dear John. I want a full audit prepared of every expense I've covered for my family over the last 5 years. Mortgage payments, loans, credit card debts, education fees, everything. I want it itemized with dates and amounts. They want to see what I've done for them, fine. I'll show them in cold, hard numbers. Min, I hit send, leaning back in my chair as a wave of clarity washed over me. I wasn't just cutting them off. I was reclaiming my life, piece by piece. The next morning I woke up to a string of missed calls and messages. My family group chat had exploded. My brother had joined the chorus. What's wrong with you, man? You're tearing this family apart. I didn't bother responding. Instead, I spent the day collecting every bank statement, every email, every text message that documented their endless demands and emotional manipulation. I wanted a record of everything. 2 days later, my lawyer called. Tim, they've listed the house for sale. Looks like they're trying to cash out before the paperwork goes through. I smirked. Of course, desperate people make desperate moves. Block it, I said firmly. I already did, but they might try something else. Be ready. That night, another knock at my door. I checked the peephole. Sarah and my father, both looking furious. I considered ignoring them, but then I thought about everything I'd held back over the years. All the times I bit my tongue, let them walk over me, took the high road. I opened the door. Tim! What the hell are you doing? My father barked, his face red with fury. This is your family. No, I said, my voice calm. I was your bank account, and now that's over. Sarah stepped forward, her face twisted with anger. You're being a selfish, ungrateful. I'm protecting myself. I cut her off, my voice sharp. I saw the refinancing attempt. I know what you're trying to do. Silence. My father's face fell, his anger momentarily replaced by shock. He hadn't expected me to be this prepared. We're just trying to fix things, Tim, he said, his voice dropping to a low, desperate tone. You're the one making this impossible. Fix things, I shot back. Or just take everything while you still can. My sister's eyes narrowed. You're a burden, she spat, her voice dripping with venom. I met her glare without flinching. Then, let's cut ties. You won't have to worry about me being a burden anymore. They stormed off, slamming my door so hard the frame rattled. I watched through the window as they argued by their car, pointing toward my apartment, their faces twisted in frustration. The next day, my lawyer sent me the financial audit. It was brutal. Mortgage payments, $78,000. Car loan for Dad, $15,000. Sarah's wedding, $22,000. Ethan's college tuition, $36,000. Emergency family support, $51,000. Total nearly $200,000. I forwarded the audit to the family group chat with a single message. I wanted all, every cent. Silence. An hour later, my phone rang. My father. I let it go to voicemail. He called again and again. Then my mother. Then my sister. Finally, my father left a message, his voice strained, barely controlled rage beneath the surface. You've lost your mind. We're your family. Where do you expect us to get this money? You're going to destroy us. I played the message twice, a bitter smile spreading across my face. They were finally starting to feel the pressure. My phone buzzed again. A text from Sarah. "You're so selfish. Mom is sobbing. Dad looks like he's dying. Are you proud of yourself?" I typed back, my fingers steady. "Pay up, Sarah, or don't, but I'm done." For days, the calls kept coming, the messages piling up. I ignored them all, focusing instead on rebuilding my life. I went back to the gym, reconnected with old friends, started working on projects I'd pushed aside for years. Then a week later, a final message from my father. "We sold the house, we sold the cars, we even pawned Mum's jewellery, and we still don't have enough. You're killing us." I didn't respond. 2 days later, the transfer arrived, 200,000, every cent. I stared at the number, felt the rush of satisfaction, but also a cold emptiness. I had won. But what had I really gained? A few days after that, I got one last email from my lawyer. They've been evicted, couldn't pay rent, couldn't secure a new loan, homeless, broken. I closed the email, leaning back in my chair, staring at the blank wall in front of me. For the first time in years, I felt nothing. No guilt, no pity, just freedom.